Team SoulBlaze, Vanity Dazzle, back at again for another Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile. So if you guys enjoy it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And let's get this one started. Today's deck is Ultimate Heroes or All Heroes. This was basically made by me and our head, I guess, or not our head, but like our co-host Mandala, who goes by Karibo sometimes, and who goes by Ro and other names. And we built this deck because he heard of a deck that was all heroes. I forgot. He never told me who it was by. So whoever that is, good job on making all heroes. And he wanted to build it. So we literally dove into this. It took us a day to do it because normally when we're talking to each other about decks, we normally fuck around a lot and then we get really confused because we completely forget where we're going and we get really off track. So it took us like 2 days to actually build the damn thing. But eventually we got it built, and this deck works out really well. I never used it personally myself, but according to him, it's very consistent. He sees what he wants to see when he needs to see it. So, by those notes, let's go ahead and get this started. First up, we've got 2 copies of Honest Neos. 2500 attack, 2000 defense, level 7. Quick effect, you can discard this card, then target 1 hero monster on your field. It gains 2500 attack till end of turn. And quick effect, you can discard 1 hero monster from your hand. This card gains attack equal to the discarded monster's attack until end of turn. You can only use each effect of Honest Neos once per turn, and it's a light attribute monster. So, that's really good. It's mainly, you never summon this. I have never seen anyone actually summon this. But you can use it in your hand, give something 2500 attack. Normally that means it's probably going to hit over whatever's attacking into them in the first place. Or if they need to attack into something else, it will probably hit over it. Or if you somehow did summon this thing is kind of like, I guess, the best form of a attacker and a defender because they never know what's in your hand. Yeah, they may know you have an Honest Neos in your hand because you probably searched one and added it to their hand just in case. But you could discard anything for this and it would still get the power. But it's a helpful card. More or less, you're going to have this in hand, but it still happens to hit the field sometimes. So 2 copies because you don't need too many of it, but you definitely don't need too little of it. Next up, we've got 2 copies of Destiny Hero Malicious. 800 attack, 800 defense, level 6 dark attribute. You can banish this card from your graveyard, special summon 1 Destiny Hero Malicious from your deck. Yeah, this thing is not necessarily the best. You put it out on the board to get the dark attribute so you can mass change into something else, or for fusion material because there's a certain monster in this deck that needs dark attributes that are level 5 or higher. Hint hint this thing. Or you use as tribute fodder for Neos, or what was the other reason we shoved this thing in? I forgot. Or like you need it as like a field advancer, like a field defender. That is pretty much why this card is here. It does nothing else but that. So 2 copies. He leads into good plays. On his own though, he is not that good. Next up, we've got 2 copies of Vision Hero Ferris. 1600 attack, 1800 defense, level 5, dark attribute as well. You can discard 1 of the hero monsters, special summon this card from your hand. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can place 1 Vision Hero monster from your deck, except Vision Hero Ferris, in your spell and trap card zone as a face-up continuous trap. And also, you cannot special summon monsters from your extra deck for the turn, except for hero monsters. You can only use each effect of Vision Hero Ferris once per turn. So, that's pretty much what this deck is focused on. I mean, I probably should have just talked about it for this guy, but this deck is pretty much focused on, like, having all heroes, Vision Hero, Destiny Hero, Contrast Hero, Masked Hero, Elemental Hero, Evil Hero, Extra Hero. I forgot what other heroes there are. I may have already said all of them, or I may have not said all of them. The point is, not Neos Patients, because technically they're not heroes. My point is that this deck basically focuses on hero monsters. There are not many cards here that just say when you, or like elemental hero, or specify heroes like those. Some of them do, most of them don't though. So you can use the effects whatever monsters on the field. Like Neos, how he's pretty much usable with the entire deck because they all have heroes in their card name. Same with this guy because they all have heroes in the card name. And same with the card we're about to get to. So yeah, that's pretty much the deck is just all heroes. Speaking of which, Elemental Hero Stratus. Yeah, he is, Stratos. Yeah, 3 copies. I'm gonna say this right now before I get onto a skill. If you run a deck with heroes, I feel like it's mandatory to shove Stratos in at 3 because here's his effect. 1800 attack, 300 defense, level 4. When it's normal or special summoned, activate 1 of these effects. Destroy spells or traps on the field up to the number of hero monsters you control except for this card, or add a hero monster from deck to hand. So, nuke spells and traps up to literally everything else on your field because every monster in this deck is a hero to some effect, or add any hero monster you want to your hand from your deck. Granted, unless you just like Varus, unless like you add Varus, use its skill to discard Malicious to bring out Varus, then use Varus' ability to send like Increase into the thing, and then use Malicious to bring out Malicious, then use Increase to bring out Increase, use Increase ability to tribute Malicious, then bring out Vion, use Vion's skill, send a hero to grave, use Vion's skill again, banish that hero, get Polymerization into fucking Trinity if you have a Trinity in this deck, and then just 50k them to death. But then again, you can't do that because Trinity can't attack directly. But my point stands that if Trinity could attack directly, that would be an OTK right there. I don't know where I was going with that point. I just went on like some weird conversation with myself. But anyways, yeah, pretty much Stratus can lead to a lot of combos, especially with this boy and this boy and this boy and this boy, if I remember Increase correctly. Yes, I do. So yeah. 3 copies of Stratus. I don't know where that went to. I just was thinking of random bullshit. Next up, we've got Elemental Hero Shadow Mist. Level 4, 1000 attack, 1500 defense, dark attribute. By the way, this was one if I didn't say it. Those attributes do matter for the masked heroes, but we'll get to them in a while. Anyways, if this card is special summoned, you can add 1 change quick play spell card from your deck to your hand. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 hero monster from your deck to your hand, except for Shadow Mist. You may only use Shadow Mist effect once per turn, and only once that turn. So, or sorry, you can only use 1 Shadow Mist that turn, and then once per turn. So, yeah. You basically get to add a mass quick play, or just any change quick play spell from your deck to your hand, so the mass change cards. And then, when it's sent to the graveyard by any means, you can get a hero monster from your deck to your hand. I feel like most of the time when you get heroes, you're just going to pick Stratos, because he can literally get you anything else. Unless you're in the situation where you need the defensive for Neos, you should just pick Stratos, because you can loop into Ferris again, use Ferris skill to get the increase, use Increases skill to, I mean, if you discard out the Malicious for it some way somehow, then yeah, use the Malicious skill, get out the Malicious, use Increase skill, I mean Ferris skill to get the increase, use Increase skill to banish the Malicious, then bring out Vion, and then use Vion skill to get Polymerization, etc, etc. I don't know where I keep going with that, but yeah, he's a helpful card to get set up for, and he can just activate like more high-powered monsters with his effect. So 2 copies. Because the only downside to him is that he has to be special summoned, and his abilities are once per turn. Next up, we've got Destiny Hero Draw Guy. 1600 attack, 800 defense, level 4 dark attribute. If this card is special summoned by the effect of a hero monster, you can make each player draw a card, and during your next standby phase after this card is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon this card from your graveyard but banish it when it leaves the field. And you can only use each effect of him once per turn. So he can't special summon himself and get both players a draw. Or you can use his effect to get out or just use his effect to get a banish, to summon him back and then get another draw out of it. So, helpful draw guy, 2 copies. Next up, we've got 2 copies of Elemental Hero Plasma! 1700 attack, 1100 defense, level 4 light attribute. Once per turn, you can reveal 1 fusion monster in your extra deck, then send 1 of the fusion materials whose name is specifically listed on that card from the deck to the graveyard, and this card's name becomes that set monsters until the end phase. So most of this deck is made up of cards that don't have specific materials, because most of those specific materials are like specific heroes, which means you gotta run cards to get those heroes, and then you gotta like make the deck more focused around those heroes and those monsters. So not a lot of them have it. I think the only cards that have it are just, let me think, 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait, no, 3 monsters. Out of this entire extra deck, only 3 monsters list actual specific materials, and the rest of them don't. So you can immediately use this guy's effect to get those 3, and then they're just helpful. So 2 copies of Prisma because he works with the deck. Next up, 2 copies of Elemental Hero Solid Soldier. Earth attribute, 1300 attack, 1100 defense, level 4. When this card is normal summoned, you can special summon 1 level 4 lower hero monster from your hand. If this card is sent from the monster zone to the graveyard by a spell effect, aka mass change, or polymerization for that matter, you can target 1 hero monster in your graveyard except Solid Soldier, special summon in defense mode. You can only use each effect of Solid Soldier once per turn. Or sorry, not each effect, this effect. So, you know, you can get out Ferris because Ferris just says it has to be special summoned by any means. It doesn't have to be by its own. So you can use Ferris to get the increased violent loop again. Or you can bring out Stratos to get more searching. Or if you didn't use a Shadow Mist this turn, you can use Shadow Mist. Or if you have a Draw Guy in graveyard and you didn't use his ability, Draw Guy as well. Solid Soldier just helps out the deck a lot. By just summoning him, you get out another hero monster, and then when he goes to graveyard, you can get out that hero monster again. So, helpful card to have 2 copies. Next up, 2 copies of Elemental Hero Liquid Soldier. 1400 attack, 1300 defense, level 4 water attribute. When this card is normal summoned, you can target 1 level 4 lower hero monster in your graveyard except for Liquid Soldier, special summon it. If it is used for fusion material as for hero monster, aka everything in this extra deck, and sent to the graveyard or banished, you can draw 2 cards and discard 1. You can only use 1 Elemental Hero Liquid Soldier effect per turn, and only once that turn. So, pretty much, you can get out a hero from your graveyard, such as Solid Soldier, or Stratus to use its effect, or Shadow Mist to use its effect, or Draw Guy, etc. And then you can use that card's effect. Normally what my friend does is he'll go Solid Soldier into a Shadow Mist. Use Shadow Mist to get a Mass Change card. Mass Change the Shadow Mist, bringing out Dark Law or Anki, depending. Then he'll wait till the next turn, bring out Liquid, use Liquid skill, bring back the Shadow Mist, use the Shadow Mist skill again, get out another Mass Change, and then Mass Change either this into, like, most of the time he'll Mass Change this to absolute 0. Sometimes he'll change this back into Diane if he has a Diane in his extra deck, or he'll change this into whatever he didn't pick the first time between Anki and Dark Law. So Liquid Soldier always comes in to help, and then the one time he did use it for fusion spamming, he drew into an Honest News for it, which ended up fucking me in the ass. So, helpful card to have, 2 copies. Next up, 2 copies of Elemental Hero Ocean. Ocean man, take me by the hand, lead me to the land. Okay, anyways, 1500 attack, 1200 defense, level 4, water attribute. Once per turn during your standby phase, you can target 1 hero monster you control or in your graveyard and return the target to your hand. So, you know, bounce stuff that's in your graveyard, such as fusion monsters that you need, or materials that you need for fusion summonings that can search. Or, you can bounce like Stratos, so you can use his ability again, or Liquid Soldier, so you can use his ability again, or Solid Soldier, so you can use his ability again, or Neos, if they're both in the graveyard, so you can add 1 back to hand, so you can use its defensive ability again, or Prisma, because it hit the graveyard and you have some fusion materials, but you need like another copy of it. So Prisma, or anything else. Ocean's just a helpful card to tie the deck together. The only problem is, like, the deck doesn't really defend a lot. It's more or less summon big beefy monsters and then beat the shit out of your opponent with that big beefy monsters. So Elemental Hero Ocean normally doesn't stay around for that long unless you got like big beefy monsters for them to focus on otherwise. So when you got the big beefy monsters, summon Ocean, get back some of your field, and then if they do kill your monsters, you can get back those monsters kind of easily. So 2 copies. 2 copies of Vision Hero Vion. Level 6. Whoa, what the fuck am I talking about? Level 4, Dark Attribute. 1000 attack, 1200 defense. If this card is normal or special summon, you can send 1 hero monster from your deck to the graveyard. You can only use this effect of Vision Hero Vion once per turn, and once per turn, you can banish 1 hero monster in your graveyard and add 1 polymerization from the deck to the hand. So unfortunately, it has to be a regular polymerization, but it can also be something like Fusion Substitute, and you can just send a hero to the graveyard, then use it during your first turn, and get out of polymerization. Like I said earlier, what you can do is call Stratos skill, Ferris skill, discard this, bring it out, use Ferris skill, set an increase in the spell and trap card zone, use Malicious skill, banish the copy of itself, bring out another Malicious from the deck, then use increase skill, destroy Malicious, and then bring out increase another Vision Hero, bring out Vion skill, send literally any hero you want to the graveyard, use Vion skill, banish that hero, search your deck for a polymerization, fusion summon with one of the 3 monsters on board or 4 monsters on board at this point, and you do as you wish with them. So yeah, Vion can lead into plays, and he can get you an easy fusion out on the first turn. So 2 copies. 2 copies of Destiny Hero Decider. 1600 attack, 1000 defense, level 4 Dark Attribute, one of the better heroes actually. Level 6 or higher monsters your opponent controls cannot target this card for attacks. So the only thing that can touch this is Link monsters, because normally fusion monsters, well, fusion and synchros always have levels. Xyz monsters also can't target this, but normally other monsters, they're like really high leveled when they have a lot of power, so Decider defends itself from those, and you can only use each effect of Decider once per duel, unfortunately, which sucks. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add 1 hero monster from the graveyard to your hand during the end phase of the turn. So literally anything in this deck that is a monster, including these, you can get back. Or when a card or effect is in activate that would inflict damage to you while this card is in your graveyard. Return this card back to your hand, and if you do, make the effect damage 0. So he's a really helpful defender, and he doesn't really decide the game for you. He more or less like helps set up, and he can defend you for a long time. So they should have called him Destiny Hero Defender, but that belonged to a different card that I guess doesn't really do much just besides be like a 27k wall that I have abused into a very certain type of attacker, which we will get onto later. But still 2 copies of Decider because he's helpful. Next up, 2 copies of Sparckman. 1600 attack, 1400 defense, level 4 light. It is a vanilla. The only reason why it is here, or sorry, let me explain that. The only 2 reasons why it's here is because Tempest and not the Shining Flare Wingman, and that's it. There's no other reason for Sparckman to be here because he's a vanilla. But 2 copies because of those 2 fusions. Next up, 2 copies of Elemental Hero Bubbleman. 800 attack, 1200 defense, level 4 water attribute. And this is the only card in your hand, you can special summon it from the hand. And when this card is summoned, you can draw 2 cards. You must control no other cards and have no cards in your hand to activate and resolve this effect. So, you know, if you're really losing the game, your opponent's just like gotten rid of all of your hand cards, you draw into this, your whole field is nuked, bring out the Bubble Man, draw your 2 cards, do an anime style move, Destiny Draw, Polymerization, etc. into, I don't know, Exodia somehow. Bullshit, I guess. Yeah, Bubble Man never really comes in handy. Honestly, once more, the only reason why Bubble Man's here is mainly for Tempest. You don't really run him otherwise, but in the really off chance that you're in that bad situation, Bubble Man can be helpful. Next up, 1 copy of Evil Hero, a Dusted Gold. Yeah, there are only 2 Evil Heroes in this deck, mainly because, like, all of them aren't really that good. I want to say they're not good. They're good in their own right, but, like, in terms of all together, they're not really that amazing. 2100 attack, 800 defense, level 4. You can discard this card and add 1 Dark Fusion or 1 card that specifically lists Dark Fusion and its text from your deck to your hand, except for this card. And you may only activate this card's effect once per turn, and it cannot attack unless you control a fusion monster. Don't worry, you're not going to use this for a attack because you're going to use it as fusion material because there's only 1 monster in this extra deck that requires Evil Hero for fusion material, and what you do is you discard this. Search the deck for a Dark Fusion or the card that lists Dark Fusion, use it, banish this, and a level 5 or higher monster, bring out the 1 Evil Hero, and then fuck your opponent over with it because that's what it did to me. 1 copy, because you do not need more than 1. Next up, 2 copies of Vision Hero Increase, the card I've been talking about for the annoying combo for a long ass time. 900 attack, 1100 defense, level 3. If you take battle or effect damage while this card is in your graveyard, you can place this card from your graveyard in your spell and trap card zone as a face-up continuous trap. During the main phase, if it is treated as a continuous trap, you can tribute 1 hero monster. Special summon this card. If it is special summoned from the spell and trap card zone, you can special summon 1 level 4 or lower Vision Hero monster from your deck. Like I said before, and I will go over it one more time. Stratus into a Ferris. Send Malicious to graveyard. Special summon Ferris. Use Ferris skill to send this into the spell and trap card zone. Use Malicious skill. Bring out the other copy of Malicious from the deck and banish the other one. Use Increase skill. Tribute the Malicious. Bring out Increase. Use Increase skill. Special summon Vion from the deck. Use Vion skill. Send any hero you want from the deck to the graveyard. Use Vion's skill again. Banish the other Malicious that is currently in your graveyard that you used to summon this thing. Then add a Polymerization / fusion substitute from deck to hand. Then fusion summon with like the 4 monsters on your board. Okay, that's the last time I'm naming that combo, and then we don't have to hear about it ever again. 2 copies because it can be helpful. Next up, onto our last 2 monsters. These are both vanillas. They are in the same place as like Sparckman and Bubbleman, where they wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the fusions that we run, which is 2 Persinatrix and 2 Avion, 1000 attack and 1000 defense on Avion with a wind attribute level 3, and Persinatrix is a 1200 attack and 800 defense, level 3 fire. And their fusion materials that they're for is Flame Wingman, and for Avion, he actually needed for 2, and the other one being Tempest. So, yeah. Okay, anyways, on to spells finally. First up, we've got 1 copy of Dark Calling. Fusion summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck that must be special summoned with Dark Fusion by banishing the fusion materials listed on your hand and in your graveyard. This card is also treated as a fusion summon with Dark Fusion. So you only need 1 because once more we only run 1 Evil Hero Fusion, but you know, you normally use this card, send it to the graveyard, search for this, then you use this card and fuse it with this card from your graveyard by banishing it, and banishing most likely Ferris or just something else on your board or in your graveyard, and then bring out Evil Hero Malicious Bane, which we'll get to later. And that's pretty much all this does. There's no other real point for it being here, which is why it's at 1, so 1 copy. Next up, 2 copies of Emergency Call. Add 1 elemental hero from the extra deck. I mean, not from the extra deck, from the deck to the hand. Yeah, so this is one of the cards that's kind of restricted to elemental heroes. It's actually the first card I think we've ran into, not counting you, that is actually restricted to the type of hero you're allowed to use with it. But it's fine because, like, normally what you use this for is last minute Neos or Stratos who can search for Varus and then proceed to go into the weird loop combo again, which is honestly, Stratus is basically just this, but without the elemental restriction. So 2 copies because it can bring out these 2 mainly, and that's the only purpose why it's here. Next up, 2 copies of Miracle Fusion. Fusion summon 1 elemental hero fusion monster from your extra deck by banishing fusion materials listed on it from your field or graveyard. So that's good. It is a fusion card that can target the graveyard. It's at 2, and you can search this out with one of our fusions that we normally go into very often. So yeah, 2 copies of Miracle. 2 copies of Fusion Substitute. It is basically polymerization, but you can banish this card from graveyard, then target 1 fusion monster in your graveyard and return it to the extra deck if you do draw a card. So you know, since we run everything at 1 in the extra deck, you could, if your opponent destroys your monster, you could banish this, get the monster back in your extra deck, and Destiny, your way to victory, and just pray to God it works. So 2 copies. 1 copy of Max Change 2 Electric Boogaloo. Quick play spell, mass change as just normal would be. Discard 1 card, then target 1 face-up monster you control that has a level. Send it to graveyard. Also, after that, if it left the field by this effect, special summon from your extra deck 1 masked hero with the same attribute but a higher level than the attribute / level the monster had when it was on the field. Its original attribute level if face down. This is treated as a special summon with mass change. You may only activate 1 mass change 2 per turn. So, pretty much, you take 1 monster, you change it into a different one, and normally that makes it stronger. That is pretty much the basic that's probably what the basic definition of evolution is, and that's pretty much what mass change is. I mean, technically it's not. It's more or less you become a different person, but that person probably has more power than you. It's basically here to make more attacks and to get out monsters with probably better effects. Like Shadow Mist is pretty much here to search this and nothing else. Next up, 2 copies of Form Change. Target 1 hero fusion monster you control, return it to the extra deck, then special summon from your extra deck 1 master hero monster with the same level as that monster's original level, but with a different name. So, pretty much, Flame Wingman can, for example, become Dark Law. Divine Wind. Let me just make sure something real quickly. I may have gotten that wrong. So with the same level as that monster, but with a different name. So they can be also treated as different attribute, if I'm correct. So yeah, Flame Wingman can become Dark Law. Absolute Zero can become Divine Wind. Presumably, if I'm getting this right, they can do that. Or, like, a better example, just in case they can't, would be Adoration can turn into Anki. So, yeah. My point is, like, these are basically here for more attacks and to get, like, different abilities off. So, 2 copies and 1, but you don't really see more than that. And then 3 copies of Mass Change. Quick play spell, target 1 hero monster you control, send it to grave. And then also after that, if it left the field by this effect, special summon 1 masked hero monster from your extra deck with the same attribute as the sent monster had when it was on the field, if its original attribute if face down. The only reason why it mentions that it has to leave the field by this effect is because people can go Raigeki Break as you make the target, and because of how Yu-Gi-Oh! Chain works, the Raigeki Break would activate before this goes off, and then the monster would die, and then Mass Change wouldn't go off. But otherwise, it's fine because it's a quick play spell, so you can get more attacks out of it, like I've been saying, and you can get different monsters out with different effects. So 3 copies. And you only run 6, mainly because, like, there are only a total, I think there are exactly 6 mask heroes in the extra deck and the side deck. Let me see. 1, 2, 3. This is not a mask hero, is it? Nope. 3, 4, 5. Okay, never mind. We just run 6 just in case you know you need it. Now on to Field Spell, and then our last spell for that, Fusion Gate. We run 2 copies of it because, you know, it's a field spell, and it can actually be helpful for very certain fusion. While this card's on the field, to the turn player can fusion summon 1 monster from their extra deck by banishing fusion materials listed on it from their hand or field. So basically, you gotta banish your materials instead of sending them to the graveyard, which kind of stops a lot of cards from activating, but it's fine, because you're still getting a fusion out of it minus polymerization. So, and it's a permanent card, as long as they don't blow it up. So 2 copies, it can help your opponent, but it can help you a lot too. And it can also help a very certain monster hit really big numbers. Next up, we have a one of tech, and if you want to like use this deck in rulings, because I'm 90% sure, like, here, let's turn on 2020 rulings right now. Where's 2020 rulings? I don't know why I'm being so stupid. I swear it's right here, and I'm just not paying attention to it. Okay, yeah, let's go world. Yeah, so the only cards that are restricted here are this. Actually, no, we're following rulings, except for this card. Except for the skill, we are actually following rulings. So if you really want to, like, or this actually, let's try this. Yeah, still same. So if you want to like use this deck with rulings on, what you can do is just take out this and replace it with another copy of this. But anyways, on to what the cards actually do. Elemental Recharge are one of tech. Gain 1,000 life points for each face-up elemental hero monster you control. Yeah, it's basically the one of tech because it restricts elemental heroes, but it's fine because you gain life points, so it kind of increases your life after death longer. And honestly, you got like a lot of elemental, or you got a decent amount of elemental heroes. Let's see. This guy's an elemental hero, this one's an elemental hero, this one's an elemental hero, so that's 3 now. This one's an elemental hero, so that's 4. This one's an elemental hero, so that's 5, 6. So 6 elemental hero fusions, so that's pretty good. So I say like, and then there's also a bunch of these. I'm pretty sure most of the main deck is elemental hero. So elemental recharge can get a lot of work out of it. So 1 copy, if you really want to follow the rulings, make it 2 instead of this card, and you'll be good. Next up, a hero emerges. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, whether it's a direct attack or not, your opponent chooses 1 random card from your hand, and then if it's a monster, that card can be special summoned. Otherwise, send it to the grave. So pretty much has the chance of completely stopping your opponent with a big attack, or like a big defender such as Neos. Here's what you do to kind of like guarantee they do. Discard everything in your hand, and then use Stratus to get this into your hand, and then they attack. A hero emerges. Oh, I wonder what they're gonna pick. I only have 1 card in my hand. Neos, go. And then you block them down with Neos. Granted, Stratus is still probably gonna die. Maybe Neos might die too. Point is, you kind of just gotta set up and pray to God that you get lucky, and it might even stop a direct attack. So 2 copies. 2 copies of Hero Barrier. During your opponent's turn, you can activate this card during the battle step. Any opponent's attack that takes place while you control an elemental hero monster is negated, but this effect only works once. So, and it also works immediately, so you can't just pick which one you want it to go off on. Good news is, Hero Barrier can activate whenever it wants, and it can defend you, so, 2 copies. Finally, 3 copies of Hero Signal. We agreed that the best out of like all the Signal cards, despite the fact there only being 2, 1 Destiny, 1 Hero, is that Hero Signal is just better because, well, most of the main deck is Hero, and they benefit more from like being normal or special summon, like Stratus, elemental hero that activates normal or special summoned. Shadow Mist, it can be special summoned. Actually, it has to be special summoned for its effect to go off. Liquid Soldier. Yep. So and Bubble Man to some extent. Yeah, it just says when it's summoned. So I guess Bubble Man can be helpful in that situation. So yeah, Hero Signal just helps out a lot. So 3 copies of Hero. Because, by the way, if you don't know what it does, sorry. When a monster you control is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, special summon one level 4 or lower elemental hero monster from your hand or deck. So you can bring out something from hand, you can bring out something from deck, and its effect can go off. So 3. And finally, our skill. Like I said, we don't normally play with rulings on, so we're allowed to use this. But if you really want to play with rulings, replace this with another elemental recharge. But pretty much what this does is, but where was I going with this? Alright, it's pretty much polymerization. You flip it over, and you can fusion summon once. It's a skill, so it only activates once, but it also only activates during your main phase. So it's like a pseudo polymerization that helps you out when you don't actually have polymerization. And when you're playing without rules, this is what you gotta use. But if you want to play with rules, then don't use this and use elemental recharge instead. Now on to the rest of the main deck. First up, we've got Extra Hero, Dread Decimator! Link 3, all of its links pointing downwards towards you, basically. 2 or more hero monsters to summon it, 2500 attack. This card and any other hero monsters it points to literally everything else in this deck gains 100 attack for each hero monster with different names in your graveyard, and if this card attacks a defense position monster, it inflicts piercing damage. So that's good. Granted, 100 attack points is small, but like, you can definitely stock up a good amount of heroes. I mean, just like in the first turn move I described a lot, or in the early, you get like this engrave, another hero monster, no actually no, just this engrave, you can presumably get 2 more. So at least 3 monsters in grave on first turn, and if you actually link summon with those, you can get 6 in grave on first turn, so that's just pretty helpful, and half of them are from effects. So, you know, Dread Decimator can give a pretty good boost all around. I wouldn't say summoning it early unless you really needed to. Like, wait it out. If your opponent is really hanging on there, use Dread Decimator to, like, push for game, or if they have a big-ass monster, summon this thing, or, like, try to send heroes to the graveyard first, set it up, and then bring out Dread Decimator to make it bigger, but it can still be helpful. So next up, we've got 1 copy of Extra Hero Wonder Driver. By the way, if you're wondering why everything in this extra deck's at 1 copy, it's because to, like, kind of be unique. Like, a lot of people are going to think you're probably running multiple copies of everything, or like certain cards, because, oh yeah, those cards are better than everything else, or they would be better in more situations, and granted that's true, but if you have 1 copy of everything, you're kind of more suited for every situation, and granted that's like a very bad way to think about it, because it's kind of like you do one thing either really well, or you do everything really badly, but the deck doesn't really do anything really badly. It's really consistent. It's just like when it branches off to do certain things, like power-wise for certain cards, it doesn't really do the best with, which is why Dread Decimator is here to solve the problem. But yeah, it's pretty much made to sort for different situations. If you want to change it to where it's better for you, where it focuses on one thing and does it really well, then do that. But for us, this does it better. Anyways, Wonder Driver. Link 2. 1 link going to the top, the other link going to the bottom. Let's see. 1900 attack and 2 hero monsters exactly, which means you can't just like dread. Well, actually, no, that makes sense that it had to be 2 hero monsters, but the good news is it can be any hero, as per usual. If a hero monster is normal or special summoned to the zones this card points to, target 1 polymerization card, or 1 fusion spell card, or 1 change quick play spell card in your graveyard, set that target. So this, or maybe even this, I'm not so sure if it would work for this one, and set them. You can only activate this effect of Extra Hero Wonder Driver once per turn. If this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, or if this card in your possession is destroyed by an opponent's card effect and sent to the graveyard, special summon 1 hero monster from your hand. I like that. That's just either a free Stratus, a free this thing, a free this thing, a free this thing. Pretty much this thing just sets up everything, and the only way to prevent it from doing that is to nullify its effects, then destroy it, or banish it, or return it. So Wonder Driver pretty much does good. 1 copy. Next up, we got 1 copy of Flame Wingman, 2100 attack, 1200 defense, level 6 wind. Also, this was a light and a dark. Anyways, it requires Bestinatrix and Avion, one of our only few monsters that actually require monsters for fusion materials. Must be fusion summoned and cannot be special summoned by other ways. When this card destroys a monster by battle and sends it to graveyard, inflict damage to your opponent equal to the attack of the destroyed monster. So that doesn't really happen very much. A lot of monsters have more power than Flame Wingman, or like when they don't, they have a lot of defense to the point where Flame Wingman ain't gonna hit over them anyways, which is why Dread Decimator is here to increase Flame Wingman's power. But Flame Wingman can still do good on his own, because he can still do a pretty good amount of damage. So Flame Wingman's just Flame Wingman. And he's also the original hero, or like the original, I guess, ace monster for hero, because I'm pretty sure Jaden's main hero was supposed to be Flame Wingman until Neos came along, so, you know, he's good. Next up, we've got Masked Hero Darko. I don't know what I was about to call him. 2400 attack, 1800 defense, level 6, must be special summoned by mass change. Any card sent to your opponent's graveyard is banished instead, so that's good. Their opponent just can't touch stuff. I know that screws over a lot of decks. I should know. This thing is the bane of my existence in testing, because a lot of cards I use need, like, when sent to the graveyard, or if it's in the graveyard, activate so-and-so by paying so-and-so cost. Yeah, this thing kind of prevents me from using those, and just banish them immediately, so this card's kind of like the bane of my existence. Anyways, once per turn, if your opponent adds a card from their deck to their hand except during the draw phase of the damage step, you can banish 1 random card from your opponent's hand. So you know, here's what you do. You draw, and then activate all your cards that can draw by effects, and then they don't punish you. But yeah, Darko is kind of like the bane of my existence, and he can kind of shut down people, so it's very fun using him against others. Next up, we've got Elemental Hero Sunrise. I can see the sunrise. Anyways, 2500 attack, 1200 defense, level 7 light attribute. 2 hero monsters with different attributes for his fusion summoned. Monsters you control gain 200 attack for each different attribute you control, and you can only use each effect of Sunrise once per turn. If it is special summoned, you can add 1 miracle fusion from deck to hand. That does not correlate with this. If you run this skill and you use this to bring out Sunrise, it will not activate. We have tried it so many times and it doesn't work. But when you use any other fusion card, like an actual fusion card, it works. So just don't use the skill with it if you do. And then, when an attack is declared involving another hero monster you control, you can target 1 card on the field and blow it up. You can blow up your own card if your opponent targets it with an equipped spell. You can blow up your opponent's card. You can blow up their monsters. You can blow up your monsters. You can blow up your spells and traps if they're taking up space. It's just a very helpful card to have. Next up, we got Elemental Hero, Absoluta Zero! 2500 attack, 2000 defense, level 8, water attribute. 1 hero monster, 1 water monster, and arguably one of the best heroes in the world. Must be fusion summoned, gains 500 attack for each water monster on the field, except for Elemental Hero Absolute Zero. So assuming your opponent isn't using a water-based deck, and you're using your own cards, assumably, and you have all water monsters on board, this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so 5, around 2, or if you have this thing on the board too. So about... I don't know why I just lost count. 3,000 extra attack points, so this thing's at 55. I mean, granted, that's not going to happen, but still. And if this card leaves the field, by any means, that means return to hand, banished, destroyed, nuke the field of all monsters of your opponents. So if they get rid of this by any means, all their monsters die immediately. Yugioh, Absolute Zero. I love field nukes. It does a lot. You can ram this in. You can ram this thing into something, and it'd be best. This is hands down the best defensive card because literally nothing can get past this unless they direct attack you to death. So Absolute Zero, best card in deck, best defensive ever. 1 copy. Plus, you can also recycle this with like fusion substitute and other cards. Next up, we've got Masked Hero, Divine Wind. 2700 attack, 1900 defense, level 8 wind attribute monster. Same thing, must be special summoned by mass change. It cannot be special summoned by other ways. Cannot be destroyed by battle. Your opponent can only attack with 1 monster during each battle phase, and when this card destroys an opponent's monster in battle and sends it to grave, you can draw a card. So you can't kill this by battle. So the only way you can kill this is by effect or bouncing it or banishing it. And if it blows up something, you get to draw a card, and your opponent can only attack once during battle. So they really have to think, what do I value more? Stopping Divine Wind, or do they have another big threat coming that I could shut down right now? Which one is more important? And then it's like a 50-50 chance on that, especially if they only have 1 monster. So Divine Wind always comes in really helpful. 1 copy for restricting purposes. Next up, 1 copy of Masked Hero Anki. Same thing as usual, must be special summoned by mass change. This card can attack directly, but when it does, the battle damage is inflicted to your opponent is halved. And when it destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to grave, you can add 1 change quick play spell from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effective Anki once per turn. So blow up a monster, get a search out, and you can do direct damage if you need to. I cannot tell you how many times that saves us because we do a lot of stupid things when we play tag fights with each other. A lot of stupid things, and normally we're in the situation where we're low on life points, we need to do some form of damage to them. Anki, and they got big walls, Anki being summoned out and they're just doing direct damage on his own. Anki always does us good, and he has 2800 attack and 1200 defense and is a dark attribute. Next up, Vision Hero Adoration. 2000 attack, 2100 defense, level 8. 2 hero monsters. Once per turn, you can target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls and 1 other hero monster you control. The opponent's targeted monster loses attack and defense equal to the attack of the targeted monster until the end of the next turn. Until the end of this turn. So pretty much, take 1 of your monsters and then take an opponent's monster, weaken their monster by your monster's attack points as long as it was a hero, but everything in this deck's a hero anyways, so my point stands, and it makes it harder to kill it. And it has 2800 attack and 2100 defense, making it a pretty decent wall. So, 1 copy. Next up, 1 copy of Elemental Hero Shining Flare Wingman. 2500 attack, 2100 defense, level 8. Basically the same stats as regular Wingman. Actually, in terms of... No, not that same, but kind of same. Light attribute. Must be fusion summoned with Flame Wingman Regular and Sparckman. And it gains 300 attack for each Elemental Hero card in your graveyard. That's That's not that difficult to have, but it's the bad part because like it requires elemental heroes, but it's still fine. And if it destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to grave, inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's original attack in the graveyard. So, you know, you can deal damage to your opponent when this thing kills something. And it's a lot easier to do with this card because you're most likely... Because since you already sent Flame Wingman and Sparckman probably to the graveyard, that probably means you also send Personitrix and Avion there too, which means this card gains a total of 1,200 attack points, bringing it to 37 at the very least. So that's a pretty good number. So, you know, it makes it easier to hit over stuff already, and as the game prologues, it gets more power, and if you have a dead Decimator on the board, it gets even more powerful. It's just always helpful to have them, so Shining Flare Wingman can get a really good beat stick over time. Next up, Elemental Hero, The Shining! One Elemental Hero monster and one Light monster. The other reason why Sparckman's here, actually. 2,600 attack, 2,100 defense, level 8. Must be fusion summoned and cannot be special summoned by other ways, as per usual. This card gains 300 attack for each of your banished Elemental Hero monsters. Once more restricted to Elemental Heroes, but it pretty much does the same thing as Shining Flare Wingman for that sake. And when it's destroyed, when it's sent to the graveyard from the field, you can target up to 2 of your banished Elemental Hero monsters, add those target to your hand. So good news is it can be sent by anything. It can be sent by card effect, it can be sent by battle. It doesn't matter, as long as it's sent to the graveyard, you can add 2 of your banished hero monsters back to your hand. The only unfortunate part is that they go to the hand and they don't get special summoned, but it's still helpful because you can get your resources back if something like goes wrong, such as you accidentally banish a Stratus, or like say you want to send a Malicious, or like you want to redo this whole entire loop with Ferris, Increase, where was it, Vion and Stratos, then you can if you want to. Next up, Elemental Hero, Tempest. He's pretty much here as a defensive card. Wind attribute, 2,800 attack, 2,800 defense. Elemental Hero Avion, Sparckman, and Bulbman required for his fusion summon. You can send one other card on your field to the graveyard and target one monster you control, and while this card is face up on the field, that monster cannot be destroyed by battle. Not a once per turn effect, so if you want to, you can just send a bunch of cards to grave, nuke all those cards, and then just protect your monsters from being destroyed by battle. So that's always helpful to have. He's like an infinite wall in terms of defenses for battle when it comes to attack. When it comes to effects, though, he doesn't really do much. But Tempest can still be a helpful wall. So, yeah, summon him if you really need it, but I wouldn't suggest like wasting 3 monsters on it. Next up, Destiny Hero, Dystopia. 2 Destiny Hero monsters, 2,800 attack, 2,400 defense, level 8 Dark. If this card is special summoned, you can target one level 4 lower Destiny Hero monster in your graveyard, and then inflict damage to your opponent equal to that target's attack. If this card's current attack is different from its original attack, except during the damage step, quick effect, you can target one card on the field and blow it up, and if you do, this card's attack becomes equal to its original attack. So pretty much, if someone tries to change it either for the better or the worse, you can use this ability to weaken it, and then destroy another card on the opponent's board. So that's always helpful to have. Dystopia just being a good card. Next up, we've got Destiny Hero, Dusktopia. 1 Destiny Hero fusion monster, aka this thing, and then 1 Destiny Hero monster. If this card is fusion summoned, you can fusion summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck, using monsters from your hand or field as fusion material. Once per turn, quick effect, you can target 1 monster on the field, make it unable to be destroyed by battle card effects, and if you do, neither player takes any damage from attacks involving that monster. These effects last until the end of the turn. So pretty much, when it's summoned, you get another fusion summon out of it, which is amazing, and then you can defend any monster on the board from dying by any means, and you prevent yourself from taking damage and your opponent from taking damage by it. So say they have something like, what's a good example? Like, say something has like an on-death effect, you take 4,000 points of damage. I don't think a card like that exists, but just in case it did, you could use this thing's ability and stop that effect from activating because it can't die by battle this turn, and it can't die by effects that turn. Or like, say they had something like 4,000 attack points, you can prevent yourself from taking damage with that. So even if they kill the monsters, you're still fine. So Dystopia acts as like a silver wall, or golden wall actually to be more accurate. So really good card for defensives. Next up, Evil Hero Malicious Bane. Level 8, 3,000 attack, 300 defense, Dark attribute. 1 Evil Hero monster and 1 level 5 or higher monster. Must be special summoned by with Dark Fusion. Cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. During your main phase, you can destroy all monsters your opponent controls with attack less than or equal to this card's. And also, this card gains 200 attack for each monster destroyed this way. Also, you cannot declare an attack for the rest of the turn except with hero monsters, aka literally everything in this deck. You can only use this effect of Malicious Bane once per turn. That ability is really annoying to deal with because, like, already it can't be destroyed by battle or card effects, so the only way to get rid of it is either to bounce it or banish it. It has 3,000 attack and defense, so you're already going to have a struggle like hitting over it. It can nuke everything on the board that has less attack or equal attack to it. It permanently gains 200 attack, and then the only thing it restricts from attacking is non-hero monsters. But everything in this deck is a hero, so unless like you change their name by some weird card, this thing is kind of like one of the best fusions. The only reason why it's not ran at more is because we don't run that many evil heroes. So 1 copy of Bane. And finally onto the sideboard, we only have 5 cards because you really only need these 5 cards. 1 copy of Masked Hero Acid, 2600 attack, 2100 defense, level 8 water. It's same with Mass Change, you got to special summon it with it. And then when it's special summoned, destroy as many spells and trap cards your opponent controls as possible. And if you do, all monsters they control currently lose 300 attack. So pretty much there's this combo going around where you can go bring Absolute Zero in, Mass Change it into Acid, use Acid skill, nuke the back row, and then use Absolute Zero skill, nuke all the monsters, and then you pretty much got only monsters on the board and they have nothing on their side. So, you know, Acid and Absolute Zero come in with a combo, but you don't really need these two. Acid acts like more of a defensive card, like they have to think what do they need to do to get past you, while Acid kind of like forces it like, I guess like gun trigger where you're pulling it and shooting it at them. So if you want to make it the more aggressive build, put Acid in. If you don't, then keep it at Absolute Zero in. And then just put Acid in the sideboard just in case you need it. Next up, you need Masked Hero Diane, level 8, Earth Attribute, 2800 attack, 3000 defense. Must be special summoned with Mass Change. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to grave, you can special summon 1 level 4 lower monster from your deck to field. So you know, you can get out a Shadow Mist if you haven't already used its effect this turn. Stratus, who isn't a once per turn. Not Liquid Shoulder, sorry. Vion to get some polarizations out. Draw Guide to get some draws out. You can't really use Bubble Man that much because you can't use its ability, but yeah. So Diane's just helpful because it can help search. Next up, Extra Hero Cross Crusader. We don't really use him that much because he kind of is more focused on Destiny heroes, but he's fine. 2 warrior monsters with this whole deck is. His links point to bottom left and bottom right. If this card is link summoned, you can target 1 Destiny hero monster in your graveyard, special summon it. You can tribute 1 Destiny hero monster, add 1 hero monster with a different name from your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect of Cross Crusader once per turn, and also you cannot special summon monsters the turn you activate this effect, except for hero monsters. So yeah, he's kind of more focused on Destiny heroes, but if you really need to use them, you can, and he has 1600 attack. And finally, 2 copies of Parallel World Fusion. Fusion summon 1 elemental hero fusion monster from your deck by shuffling banished fusion materials listed on it into your deck. You can only special summon monsters except by this effect during the turn you activate this card. So pretty much, Parallel World Fusion is kind of like the opposite of Miracle Fusion. What you normally do, bring out the Shining if something's going wrong and the Shining dies and you get your cards out. And say like you banished all of your materials for stuff like Flame Wingman and Shining Flare Wingman and Tempest and etc. This is where you come in and use Parallel World Fusion to send those cards back to your deck. So you still got them in deck, you bring out the big fusions, and then you still got something back despite the fact that Shining was just lost. And that's pretty much how you come back from the game. And that was the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. That was about 15 minutes of me just talking. My throat is literally dying right now. So after this video, I'm going to go get something to drink. I hope I can bring my throat back. So I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to like, comment any other decks you want to see or fights you want to see, and we'll try to do them. And burn up that subscribe button. And I'll see you all in the next one.